6:19 in the morning. The USS Abraham Lincoln is deep in combat operations over Iran. Business as usual for a carrier that's been running. Round-the-clock strike missions for everything changes a radar aircraft. High above, the fleet picks up the unmistakable thermal signatures of 4 ballistic missiles climbing above Iranian territory. They are already in the air. They are already pointed at the carrier, but that's not even the worst part, because at almost the exact same moment, 2 American destroyers, 90 miles apart from each other, detect something else entirely. Dozens of contacts, 1 wave of drones, 1 wave of speedboats, 1 barrage of anti-ship missiles, and for ballistic warheads dropping from near space, all of it hitting at the same time. This is the story of how 3 US Navy destroyers fought off one of the most layered naval ambushes in modern warfare history. On board the destroyer USS Spruant, the surface search radar suddenly lights up with 30 contacts. Low altitude, slow-moving barely 100 miles per hour, spread out in a staggered line pushing south through the coastal haze, 90 miles to the east. A second destroyer, the USS Michael Murphy, picks up 28 contacts on a nearly identical bearing. The tactical action officer aboard the Spruant, the officer who controls every weapon on the ship, takes for seconds to classify them. One-way attack drones, cheap, expendable, Iranian-made, each one worth less than a second-hand truck, but each one carrying a warhead capable of tearing through a destroyer's engine room or destroying its radar systems entirely. He doesn't hesitate. The ship's intercom fires across every speaker on board. General quarters, all hands to battle stations. The reason? Inbound air contacts, every watertight door slams shut. Sailors run. The ship's MH-60 Romeo helicopter launches off the flight deck and banks toward a picket position to the east, missiles ready. Door gunner scanning the surface below on the signal bridge. 2 sailors power up the ship's electronic warfare system, a system designed to broadcast a false radar signature, making the ship appear to be miles from where it actually sits. If Iran's targeting computers are hunting for a ship at a specific coordinate, they're now chasing a ghost. The Murphy runs the identical sequence 90 miles away. Both ships are now in the fight. Bruin's 5-inch deck gun swings toward the drone, bearing, and opens fire. These aren't direct-hit rounds. They're fitted with variable time fuses that detonate within 30 meters of a target, spraying a cone of shrapnel through anything flying nearby. The gun cycles at 20 rounds per minute. The loading crew below decks feeds ammunition in a rhythm the entire ship can feel through the floor. Drones start dropping. 30 contacts become 24, then 21. The Murphy is running the same operation on her end. The heavy machine gun crews pick up the drones that get through the 5 inches engagement zone. But then a new problem. The Spruants, junior officer of the deck watching the surface. Radar breaks radio silence. Surface contacts to the east. Fast movers. 40 knots inbound. Iranian Revolutionary Guard speedboats. Some of them configured as one-way attack vessels, their bows packed with enough explosive material to punch clean through a destroyer's hull on impact. Here's the dilemma. The 5-inch gun is aimed north at 18 drones still closing. The boats are coming from the east. 1 gun to threats. No clean answer. The Spruant heels hard to port at maximum speed, throwing a wall of churning white water off the stern. It won't stop the boats, but it shatters their coordinated attack formation. A dozen boats hitting together can overwhelm a warship's defenses. A dozen boats scattered and disorganized are just waiting to be picked off one at a time. The Spruant just turned a coordinated assault into a Q. The ship's 25mm stabilized cannon finds the lead boat at nearly a mile and a half. A sustained burst walks across the water until the engine catches fire and the hull goes dark. The helicopter handles the next one. A single missile cleaned out the remaining boats scattered to regroup 90 miles east. The Murphy faces the same scenario, but her fast boats are coming from the opposite direction, the west side, while her drones are still inbound from the north. Her tactical officer swings the 5-inch gun at the boats because a vessel loaded with thousands of pounds of explosives is the more dangerous immediate threat. He accepts the risk on the drone bearing. He puts the lighter weapons on the drones and lives with the trade-off. 3 minutes later, the boats are suppressed and the gun swings north again. The drones thinning out and the fast boats retreating. The crews on both destroyers allow themselves one brief moment to breathe, then the electronic warfare operators on both ships key their radios at almost the same call sign for an inbound anti-ship missile. It means something has already been fired, pointed at your ship-based missile. Battery on the Iranian coast had been sitting fighting, completely silent for the last 45 minutes. No transmissions, no radar emissions, just quietly listening, collecting data on both destroyers' speed, heading, and position by monitoring the ship's own electronic signals. Like a poker player who watches every tell at the table without ever revealing his own hand, and it chose this exact moment to fire. Both destroyers have just burned ammunition and operator attention on drones and speedboats. Every weapon system is pointed in the wrong direction. Every fire control radar has been aimed north or east for the last several minutes. For Iranian anti-ship missiles come off the rails, sea skimming at 5 meters above the water, hugging the wave tops to stay below radar coverage, closing at just under the speed of sound from the northwest. Inside each warhead, 165 kilograms of high explosive and an active radar seeker searching for the destroyers. The Patriot launches 3 surface-to-air missiles from her vertical launch cells. Her fire control illuminators, the radar beams that guide the missiles to their targets in the final seconds of flight, swing hard northwest and begin cycling between for incoming threats. The ship simultaneously fires chaff rockets that create massive false radar returns, making the Iranian missiles seekers hunt through a cloud of decoys. The Murphy launches her own intercepts, 2 missiles for 2 incoming threats, but her fire control radar has to alternate between targets, which means each missile flies blind for a fraction of a second every time the beam shifts. That blind gap covers hundreds of meters of flight path. The first Iranian missile is destroyed at 9 miles, then the second at 8. The third and fourth are picked off in sequence. None reach the ships. On the Murphy, the geometry is uglier. One of her intercept missiles loses its guidance lock during a ship maneuver and drifts off course. 2 more leave the launcher. Both connect. The Murphy is intact, no hits, but the clock is running out on something else entirely. The entire time, both destroyers were fighting off drones, speedboats, and sea-skimming missiles. For ballistic warheads had been falling toward the USS Abraham Lincoln from near space. The Hawkeye radar aircraft had been tracking them since the moment they launched. The data was on every ship's display, but neither the Patriot nor the Murphy could do anything about them. They didn't carry the right weapons. They were too busy fighting their own battles, what nobody in either combat information center had been told was that a third American destroyer had been watching the entire engagement from the very beginning. USS Frank Peterson Jr. had been completely silent since 6:19 a.m. Not because her crew wasn't working, but because they had exactly one mission, and it hadn't arrived yet. The Peterson carries SM-3 interceptor missiles. Unlike the surface-to-air missiles on the other destroyers, the SM-3 doesn't just fly to high altitude. It exits the Earth's atmosphere entirely. The kill vehicle separates from its rocket booster above the weather, above the sky, above everything, and physically collides with an incoming warhead in the vacuum of space if it misses by a single meter. The warhead reaches the Lincoln. The Peterson's tactical officer had been quietly building intercept solutions since the ballistic tracks first appeared. He'd been watching both destroyers fight. He'd said nothing. He kept his magazine full and his solutions clean. 3 of the 4 incoming tracks were predictable. Standard ballistic arcs, stable deceleration, textbook re-entry profiles. The 4th was wrong. Lower trajectory, irregular deceleration that didn't match any standard profile in the system's library. On the Lincoln's flight deck, the catapult crews stepped back from a fully armed fighter on the launch rails. An SM-3 missile in the upper atmosphere, and not distinguish between an Iranian warhead and a fueled American aircraft. The flight deck goes cold. Every aircraft stops. The busiest deck in the fleet goes quiet. 5 SM-3 missiles leave the Peterson's cells in 5 seconds. Their rockets burn through the atmosphere. The kill vehicles separate in the exosphere. 3 clean impacts. 3 red tracks stop updating on every display across the strike group. Then the 4th track splits 70,000 feet. The radar return separates into 2 objects, one slowing down sharply, a decoy designed to bleed off velocity and lure an interceptor away from the real warhead. The other maintaining full terminal velocity, still falling toward the carrier. The Peterson's kill vehicle reacquires the faster object, the one that isn't slowing down, the one that still has somewhere to be, and it adjusts course impact. The warhead breaks apart above the atmosphere. The debris burns on re-entry. Harmless on the Lincoln, the catapult officer steps back up to the rails. The moment the Peterson's last intercept confirmed. The Lincoln's strike planners had one task remaining. Iran had handed them the exact coordinates of the missile battery that fired those ballistic warheads. The moment those rockets lit their motors, the Hawkeye locked the launch point. Grid reference, bearing confirmed to F-A-18 Super Hornets launch off the carrier's waist catapults. Behind them, an EA-18G Growler, the electronic warfare variant, carrying a next-generation jamming system instead of bombs. Its job is simple: flood every Iranian radar frequency in the strike corridor with enough interference. Any surviving air defense operators see static. Instead of two attack jets flying north at low altitude, the package enters Iranian airspace and climbs the weapons. Officer in the lead jet sweeps the coastal highway east of the launch site with the aircraft's targeting pod. The system resolves individual vehicles at ranges that should be impossible: cargo trucks, fuel tankers, and somewhere in the southbound traffic, transporter erector launchers. The heavy military vehicles that carry and fire ballistic missiles, now heading for hardened tunnels at 35 kilometers per hour. Behind those blast doors, reload racks, fresh missiles. The ability to do this again tomorrow. The targeting pod picks up a heat signature first. Residual thermal energy bleeding through a truck's chassis. The ghost warmth of a solid rocket motor that fired less than an hour ago. Then another bloom. Two more vehicles staggered in the southbound lane, already slowing for the access road of usable time over target. The lead vehicles reach the tunnel mouth and for then, in the tree line on the southern ridge, a heat signature rises off the slope. A shoulder-fired missile. One soldier. No radar warning. No launch indication. Nothing until a bright point is climbing toward the jet's exhaust nozzle. The wingman calls it to seconds after ignition. The pilot brakes hard and dumps flares. The missile chases a flare into the hillside. The wingman pulls off target, loses altitude, loses attack position, costs 90 seconds by the time he rolls level again. The vehicles have covered another 200 meters toward the entrance road. A second heat signature moves through the tree line, a repositioning crew cutting off the approach angle. Two anti-aircraft crews in the hills. One aircraft in position to make a pass. 60 seconds before the wingman is back in the fight. 90 seconds before those vehicles disappear behind blast doors. The lead pilot checks fuel, checks range, checks the clock, then rolls in to precision-guided bombs drop off the rails simultaneously. Guidance fins snap open. GPS steering both weapons toward vehicles still moving when they arrive. Both detonate within the same second. The valley floor erupts. Secondary fires climb from ruptured fuel systems. The tunnel access road disappears in a column of smoke and debris. The wingman makes his run immediately after. Two more bombs. The targeting pod holds the tunnel entrance in frame. Open, blast doors still retracted. Empty of everything that was supposed to drive through them. The strike package turns south. Fuel gauges touching caution levels. The Growler holds its jamming orbit for another 90 seconds, transmitting until both aircraft are over the water, and there is nothing left worth protecting. Iran launched everything of what happens behind the radar screens and inside the combat information centers of a modern warship. Hit subscribe. We break down real military operations with the detail they actually deserve.